Hello and welcome to the volunteer training session video for passing the North Korean Refugee Adoption Act. Thank you so much for your interest in volunteering with the Korean American Coalition to help pass this very important act. This act can impact thousands of lives, and we here at KC truly believe that together we can make a difference. This video will give you background information about the current situation in North Korea, about this act itself, and about what you can do to ensure that this act becomes a law. So let's get started. First, we'll begin with the series of events that led to the current state of affairs in North Korea. North Korea was not always an impoverished and malnourished nation, and in fact, up until the 1970s, the North Korean economy was ahead of the South Korean economy. However, in 1994 to 1999, North Korea was hit with a great famine, which combined with floods and other natural disasters not only destroyed the available food supply, but also the food distribution system. Because North Korea has a communist government, every citizen receives a ration of food from the government. With the food distribution system down, however, people were not receiving their daily food rations. This is when people began to more actively try to escape the country as they hoped to escape starvation. Economic reform in 2002 and currency reform in 2009 only worsened the situation. As you can see, the price of rice was 0.08 North Korean won before these reform policies were implemented. After, however, the price of rice jumped to 1,400 North Korean won. This had the greatest impact on poor North Koreans who could not afford to buy rice on the black markets, and subsequently, they make up the majority of refugees as well as casualties. As you can see here, the death toll in North Korea is thought to be anywhere between 500,000 to 3 million. So where do these North Korean refugees go, and what do? And once they escape, are they truly free? Most North Korean refugees will cross the Yalu River into China, and 500,000 North Koreans have crossed the border into China. However, starting in 2000, China started its policy of repatriating North Koreans, meaning that North Korean citizens found in China would be sent back to North Korea. And because leaving the country is a capital crime in North Korea, those who are sent back face time in prison camps or execution. Therefore, even outside the regime, North Korean refugees find no real security. Not only do they have no one to turn to for help, for fear of being caught and sent back, but they also cannot obtain legitimate jobs to improve their situation. And under this precarious situation, most refugees are subjected to slave labor, sexual trafficking, or other such occupations.
Of the refugees, children are in the most tragic situation. From 2005, China began to enforce its policy of repatriating North Korean refugees, expelling mothers and fathers back to North Korea without concern of their children's whereabouts. Moreover, many children are separated from their parents when escaping North Korea and have no knowledge of their parents' survival. As a result, up to 25,000 children are now de facto orphans, most of whom do not have access to an orphanage or agency that can provide for them. Even for those that do have such access, they do not have the documentation required to prove their orphan status. Since adoption is only possible when the child is determined to be without parents, it is extremely difficult to legally adopt refugee children from North Korea to the U.S. without the passage of this North Korean Refugee Adoption Act. This slide is a visual representation of the malnutrition that North Korean refugee children suffer. The average 15-year-old girl in North Korea is 5 feet, while in South Korea the height is 5 foot 3 inches. As for average 13-year-old boys in North Korea, their height is 4 foot 9 inches, whereas in South Korea, 5 foot 2 inches.
As their drastically stunted growth shows, North Korean refugee children do not have the same opportunity for life that other children have. Adoption can give them this opportunity, but the process is far from simple. Current laws for international adoption vary by country, and in the United States, a child must be determined as adoptable before the child can be adopted. Similarly, the child must also be legally determined as an orphan before any adoption can take place. What does this mean? This means that the child has been proven to have no parents, or if the child's parent is alive, that the parent has been proven to be incapable of caring for the child. This is to ensure that children who are legally under the care of their parents or guardians are not adopted by someone else. However, this causes many complications, as refugee children most often do not carry legal documentation, such as their birth certificates, with them as they flee. In addition, they no longer have an authority figure, such as their parents, to authorize their adoption. So what can this act do to change this? If this North Korean Refugee Adoption Act passes, the law would direct the United States to develop a comprehensive strategy for facilitating the adoption of North Korean children by United States citizens. To give you some background information about the act, this same exact act was introduced to Congress last year in 2010. This act was written by Mr. Hangman, Sam Hon-Schneider, and Suzanne Schultz. Mr. Hon-Schneider himself was a Korean orphan adopted by an American bachelor to the United States in 1961. His adoption required the passage of a private bill, S-1100, because at the time, bachelors and other unmarried persons were considered ineligible for adopting children. Since then, Mr. Hon-Schneider has been working tirelessly to grant the same kind of opportunity to life that he received for North Korean refugee children by pushing for the passage of the North Korean Refugee Adoption Act. This act last year, however, failed to pass due to the lack of information and attention, as other regional priorities competed with this act. However, that this act has been reintroduced in Congress this year in 2011 shows a renewal of efforts to pass the legislation once again. Two separate bills have been introduced, one in the House of Representatives and one in the Senate. Though the content remains the same, the bill in the House of Representatives is called H.R. 1464, and it was introduced by Representative Edward Royce from California. In the Senate, the bill is called S-416, introduced by Senator Richard Burr from North Carolina in February of 2011. As you can see, the co-sponsors for both the bills in the House and the Senate are Democrats. In the House, Representative Mazie Hirono from Hawaii is the co-sponsor, whereas in the Senate, Senator Mary Landrieu from Louisiana is also the co-sponsor. This shows that this bill has support from both parties, which gives it a higher probability of passing once it goes up for vote in Congress.